event. So I just want to say thank you everybody that's joining us tonight for this watch along for the Persuaders episode the morning after. So the running order basically is that me and Jaz in a minute will start the episode, and then we'll do our conversation on it. And after the episode's over, we have an episode, a interview I did with Tony Bonner, the guest star, one of the guest stars for the episode, with just a 60-minute extract of a much larger interview. So I just sort of cut it down to the most relevant stuff for our purposes. So that'll be immediately after Jaz and I's conversation. If anybody is interested in the private signing that Tony's very kindly agreed to do, please just drop me an email afterwards and we can arrange the details. Tony's very kindly said he's not going to charge for it, so it's completely free. The only thing that people have to cover is return postage costs because he's based in Australia. But so that's opportunities available if people want to take that up. So if everybody's got the episode to hand ready, so we'll just pause on the opening frame of the episode. If anybody hasn't got the episode, I do have a link that somebody's very kindly provided me, so you can watch it online if you need to, just for the purposes of this event. And if anyone needs that, just let me know. So just want to pause on the opening shot of the episode. I'll just give people a couple of moments to do that, and then we'll begin. So it's just be Roger Moore with his eyes closed is the opening shot. Okay. Okay, I think everybody's ready. So press play in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay, well, this is quite interesting straight from the start, because this sequence here is not actually in the script.
Right.
It starts off with Danny in the taxi, and he's telling the taxi driver to hurry up. So it's quite interesting for a start point.
Yeah. Because Walter Black is the writer for this particular episode. I don't think we know too much particularly about Walter Black, do we?
I think he was American from what I remember, but no, I've not really done much sort of homework into him, to be honest.
I know that I couldn't find much when I was having a look, and nothing to confirm whether he was still alive or not. Most likely, but probably not, unfortunately, given the age of this material.
Yeah, it's that's the sad case, as we were talking about last time, that a lot of these people have obviously passed on. So finding actual people involved with the series is getting much harder. And as you mentioned in the warm-up there, where we were just chatting about Peter Bowles sadly passing away. So, it's getting harder and harder to find people involved with the series, sadly.
And there's always, of course, people that are still around, but perhaps uncontactable or just seem to have disappeared into obscurity, either deliberately or for other reasons. And of course, those that don't particularly want to sort of, maybe quite rightly, it's a small part of their career, and they think, why are we still going on about it after all these years, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously technology, a lot of these people are in their 80s and stuff and find the technology quite difficult.
Oh, yeah.
So can I just check where you are? Because my video paused for a second there, but it's all right. I'm hoping that I'm going to be roughly in the right place. I've got Brett walking around this room holding the green dress, and Danny's just come to the door.
Yeah, Danny and Brett are looking for the marriage certificate, and Brett's just sat down.
Okay, I'm just going to fast forward slightly to carry on to get to that bit. I don't know why my machine paused there. Do you mean the... Yeah, so they're sat down and they're talking about the marriage certificate. Apologies to watchers there. I'm not sure quite.
And Catherine's just strolled up to them and kissed Brett.
Oh yeah, so I'm right with you now.
Oh, perfect.
Lucky Brett, hey. Yeah, Catherine Von Schell Catherine Schell, as she later became known. She does look particularly stunning in this, and I think she gives a great performance throughout. And again, there's some script differences that we'll go into as this episode progresses. It's a shame that I dropped out there on that video, because I was going to talk about some interesting camera shots just while the titles are running. That lovely bit where you see Brett on the sofa, and then the camera changes focus to show the champagne bottle on its side. That's a lovely switch of focus. Kind of like that's his bleary haired reaction, kind of, oh, what's that? I thought that was really well done, actually, in the sort of directing's sequence. Iconic titles, as we've mentioned in our last little chat, and iconic music, of course.
And I think that's perhaps why the series is still around, is still in people's minds today, is that it is filmed like a film, that with those interesting camera shots and angles, and that's something that perhaps you wouldn't normally see for a TV production. You have very established names, editing, directing, writing. Same with the Avengers. They're basically, as Tony Curtis said, they're 50-minute movies.
Yeah, well, of course, you did that one with Peter Medak, didn't you? I mean, he was a great director to get.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you were saying, screenplay by Walter Black, directed by Leslie Norman, who has a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a shouter, but also not the best at directing in terms of these. But I think he did a much better job on this one than some of the more pedestrian ones he might have done in the past. This is quite a funny little scene with the masseur,
Yes.
Of course, at the moment, we're still all in Pinewood. I mean, that establishing shot of the Grand Hotel in Sweden, although, we're supposed to be in Sweden at the moment, they did send a unit over there to film some stuff in Sweden. And it was more kind of just like, the usual sort of like get the hotel entrance and all that. So Danny and Brett, or Roger and Tony, didn't actually step foot in Sweden during the production of this episode, but it always makes me laugh with that bit in Blu-ray where you can clearly see it's two doubles arriving in that taxi.
Yeah. On one hand, the technology makes it look so much better, but certain shots is very unforgiving, isn't it? Being high definition, the back projection and things like that as well. Yeah. Because Walter Black, I think, was, I was just going to say, Walter Black was co-story consultant, wasn't he, as well, I believe, on this episode. I'm not quite sure why he had a dual credit.
Yeah, I mean, I think he came in because he was American and it was something to do with Tony. Again, so here I was talking about that filming of sequences in Sweden. So obviously, as you can see, the back projection here is actually where they are driving around in Stockholm. So part of the unit had to do this filming. So when the back projection plates were on, it was right, otherwise it'd be clearly obvious they weren't driving around. This is a famous museum or library, I think. Bit of a quick cut there. And here we are, but straight back into Pinewood. And sort of stereotypical, I suppose, in a way, of Marriage Bureau. This is a lovely sequence, and what's really great about this is the red dress the girl is wearing. I'm sure you're probably thinking, why is he saying that? Well, red was always a bit of a hard color to light when those ITC series first started. So they clearly managed to sort the lighting out now, because if you look at the lighting of the Persuaders is not so garish as, say, I don't know, a color series of the 60s, in particular. You mentioned the Avengers there. The Dinah Rigg ones were really, really garish in their colors, whereas this is kind of, I don't know, kind of more natural, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
she's clearly enjoying herself there.
Yeah.
Both the guest stars giving her a kiss, well, the lead men, I should say, not even guest stars.
Yeah.
Sorry, slight distraction there. But this is a great scene as well, because this is where you will see the marriage certificate, and it shows Brett Sinclair reading that, but also it's got his actual apartment address, which is was when I was looking for the location of his London apartment and we couldn't find it, came up with I don't know how it came across it, but a fellow fan who was helping me with the Morning After magazine quickly spotted it and freeze framed it and said, "Oh, it says Queen Anne's Gate in London." And we looked on the map and it was actually Queen Anne's Gate, and then we went and investigated, and there it was, Queen Anne's Gate. And it's just amazing that they put the real address on on the marriage certificate. I know we haven't seen it yet, but you'll see it in a little while. I'm kind of jumping ahead there because these things go so quickly. Yeah, he's going to come and have a look at it now, I think, and then he'll get him to look again later. He's going to look now. You don't see the close-up yet.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
53 Queen Anne's Gate. And that was a revelation when my friend went and checked there, and he said to me, "You won't believe it is actually Queen Anne's Gate." And we were just like, wow, So I found that detail in the production quite staggering, really.
And I think that it is a very detailed production, isn't it? So the props and obviously they're really paying attention with things like the addresses on the marriage certificates. So again another aspect where it's very sort of filmic and
I love the decor as well in this, because that to Catherine's shoulder, that black piece that she's just moving in front of it now, by, I can't remember his last name, something like Stig Larsson. He's a very famous Swedish artist. So they really did go to a great deal of effort to make these things right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not putting a show like, say, Department S down, because I love it, but in Department S they wouldn't have made that much effort to be actually kind of perfectly right, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You've got some very nice close-ups here. I mean, and like I say, this is the sort of thing you would see in a feature film. You don't usually see these kind of close-up reaction kind of shots, of when they're chatting in, say, many TV series.
No.
But yeah, it's a bit harsh on her, really. Don't you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I suppose Brett is understandably quite, disorientated and trying to work out what's happening, and it does point to her being, a nefarious character. So I suppose the hardness is if that's true to what you would feel, but I suppose it is from a tone point of view quite dark for for the Persuaders.
Yeah, it's a lovely ring. It's got something written on it. I've never worked out what it has got written around it, But this is on an island in Stockholm somewhere. So they did really go out and about and properly do. And that's Swedish money from the time as well that he handed. Wow. This is great. The old judo scenes. I mean, Jutta Stensgaard starts there, but then this is, you can see that's a double with a very blonde wig that's not quite right, but she's throwing them around all right there. We haven't mentioned much of the cast yet. I suppose we'll come on to that in a little while. But yeah, Jutta Stensgaard is Danish, I believe, and she was a bit of a sort of hammer glamourpuss. So I think she lives in America now, from the last I heard.
Yeah, well, I wasn't able to sort of track her down despite my best efforts.
Yeah, I think she's out in LA like a lot of them, enjoying the sunshine and sort of kind of just relaxing, and who blames them really?
Well, indeed, yeah.
There's another one of Tony Curtis's fun jackets he's wearing there as well. Like he starts, he's kind of got rid of the Lou Grade suit from sort of Overture and all that, and started to dress himself. And he stopped dyeing his hair here. I don't know if you've noticed that yet. Because right at the start of the series, his hair was jet black, and he would dye it, and then suddenly he just suddenly stopped. And I've actually got a call sheet here for this episode, which is dated. I'm just going to look it up. I've got it all on screen this time, as opposed to having it like flapping around. Thursday, the 11th of February, 1971. It was in production in February 71, this episode. Clearly Tony had stopped dyeing his hair after they came back from the south of France. So this is a funny thing with the production or the broadcast order, because if you watch some of the episodes, you see that his hair starts as black, and then it jumps to an episode where he's got graying hair, and then suddenly 2 weeks later it's all jet black again. So it's quite funny that.
I think it's quite noticeable if you watch the film version, say something like London Conspiracy, where it changes halfway through the film, which is a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, and of course that's all happening soon, isn't it? Yeah, the release of the 8 movies is coming out on Monday. We're doing this on a Wednesday, and on a Monday, the Blu-rays of the 8 Persuaders movies are coming out with a book by a certain person, but we don't need to go into that.
Well, I do want to touch on that a bit later if you have time, Jazz. Maybe
sure.
A little wrap up, because that's obviously quite exciting for everybody.
Yeah.
Did you ever speak to Catherine in any of your?
Yes, I did actually. I did an interview with her by email, and she was really lovely, really charming. She's out in France now, and basically, I think the people from the sort of Space 1999 fans and people had sort of tracked her down, and very kindly, one of them got me the details for her. So I did like an email interview with her, because she runs a sort of it's like a B&B kind of holiday place that you can go out and stay there. She was really, really lovely, and she had very fond memories of this. Obviously, she's one of these actresses who just loved working with Roger Moore, like they all did, and because she shares obviously more scenes with Roger in this than she does Tony. And lots of the people I interviewed, if they're predominantly like with, for example, Tony in an episode, they tend to remember Tony more, but they all say lovely things about both of them, and say, it was a great thing to work on. And, it was like, so Catherine Shell would have probably worked on this only out of the 10 days filming. She'd have probably only been in the studio sort of 3 or 4 days maximum. Because that's how it kind of worked. You'd get your script, and they'd book you for like 2 or 3 days, and then you do all your scenes, so you're not there for the whole 10 days, and it's not filmed in order. I don't know if people understand or know about that when it comes to making films and TV series. So basically they plot out the 10 days, and then they've got the guest stars in, and say if the guest stars are going to be in for 3 days, let's say Jutta Stensgaard, who's on screen at the moment with Bernard Horsfall, they'll be in, and they'll say, right, we need you for 3 days to do all your shots, and scenes. So they do, and as you can see, this is sort of about a quarter of the way through. So if they were the first 2 actors available, you might start at 15 minutes into the episode, and then so it's not all filmed as you see it on screen. I know that probably most people realize that, but I'm sure that some people don't still, because I've spoken to people who about these things, and they're like, do they film them out of do they film it out of order then? So Yeah. Bernard Horsfall, he was in a few things. He was in a Doctor Who, wasn't he? With I think it was John Pertwee. I seem to remember when I was
Planet of the Daleks. It was
Planet of the Daleks.
Yeah,
that's it. I'm not really a big Doctor Who fan, but I remember it from when I was younger watching it. It was John. That's a John Pertwee one, isn't it?
Yeah, John Pertwee and Katie Manning as Jo Grant was the one.
He was in a few bits and pieces. I'm trying to think what else he was in.
Well, I think maybe
on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think probably most people would recognise him from that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets killed in that, doesn't he? Gets bumped off quickly.
He does, yeah, quite in a quite memorable way as well.
Yeah. That little sequence there where you've just seen Tony sort of dance around the cleaner, you know, and then pick up the phone at the same time, just shows how sort of kind of quick and nimble and versatile he was as an actor. Do you know what I mean? There's I can't remember who they were talking about. It might have been Steve Forrest. I might be mistaken, but they were saying that he, when I did interview someone, that this is actually a Stockholm airport, by the way, but that's not. That's a Pinewood interior, bad back projection. Just going back to that, they said he's not very good with props, whereas Tony, you know, Tony can act and hold props and sort of dance around and do all that. I mean, we've talked about this before, like where he's climbing up drain pipes or he's vaulting gates and things like that. He really was a very, very agile kind of actor, you know. Things that are in the way didn't cause him a problem. He kind of worked out a way around it, you know, which is great. That I love the way they cut that in. We really did go to Stockholm Airport to film.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing at it. I'm laughing because I love it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not being horrible about it, you know. And as we were talking about, the Blu-ray really does shut the sort of
it does, doesn't it?
The back projection there, but you can clearly see they've gone to film out the proper window. You know, filmed out the proper window and stuff.
I mean, what I did find on my research, whether it's true or not, is that apparently the airport that's back projected is the wrong airport for what it is. Still, it's still an airport in Stockholm, but I think they might have got it. But again, no one's really going to know unless, of course, you're familiar. But you've got.
So here's Tony. Did he give? Could he remember much about this? I don't want to spoil your thing, but was he? You know.
Yeah, I think he engaged in it quite well. He seemed to have sort of fond memories of it and working in England. And I think he I think he feel it is quite important to him as part of his career. He's very enthusiastic. You know,
was he Australian then? Is he Australian?
Yeah, he's So I did the interview. He was in Sydney when I interviewed him. Did it back in February, which of course, 50 years ago he was filming the episode. So that's quite interesting. He took the brave decision of coming over to England and with nothing particularly on his plate, and just thought, I'll give it a go, and then returned to Australia some years later.
All right, that's interesting. I mean, this is Osterley Park, which is kind of funny because the last DVD commentary kind of watch along thing we did, whatever you want to call these things, they were at Osterley Park then, weren't they, in that episode? But this is obviously one of Brett's favoured ancestral stately homes. I thought that was great that they actually went there, and as opposed to just a sort of quick setup again, they've gone there and properly filmed there. I'm going to get a bit heavy action now.
Yeah. Tony didn't remember filming at the. He remembers being at Pinewood. Didn't remember the actual location. Again, of course, he wouldn't have been there for all that long.
Yeah. So this is Frank Gatliff as well, another sort of seasoned ITC type actor who's appeared in so much stuff, ITV stuff over the years. We talked about it, I think, in the last one about how the sort of ITC had this kind of rep, and that a lot of the actors were pretty good and went on to good and lots of other things, like Bernard Horsfall, we mentioned there, went on to be in a Bond, or was in a Bond before this, actually.
A couple of years before.
So it's not like they just had willy-nilly people really in the Persuaders.
Well, and Neil's commented that Bernard was in Department S and the Saints, so as you say again.
Oh, you got live comments coming in, have you?
Yeah. I've got a couple through, and Neil also said that Walter Black contributed scripts to things like Bonanza, Streets of San Francisco, 550, Planet of the Apes, Ironside, and the Flintstones. So
because he was, like I say, he was American and brought on board by, I think it was for Tony Curtis's benefit, because the thing is with Tony's involvement, we have Milton S. Gelman, we have Walter Black, and then we had Larry Storch as well. So these kind of people were in for Tony. I don't know, not sure if it's to make him feel a bit more comfortable working in England, because I think he was pretty comfortable anyway, but it was just one of those things that let's get some Americans in and help Tony. Larry Storch had been one of his mates for years, so it was just one of those things that let's write a story and get Larry in it. And of course, Larry didn't step a foot. Larry, I don't think Larry did. Larry come to England? He did, actually, thinking about it, because there's that scene at the cinema. I was going to say most of his stuff was obviously out in south of France, so he did very well for himself. He got very lucky with that.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
And of course, he's still going.
Yeah. So again, we've intercutting with bits and pieces of Stockholm again. The scene out that police car out the window.
Do you know who plays the sort of caretaker here? Because it's a really interesting performance.
I'm just going to check my uncredited actors here that I've got. I've got David Johns as the Swedish policeman 1. I've got Doug Robinson as Christensen's heavy 1. I've got Terry Walsh as Christensen's heavy 2. No, let me just check on that. Let's see if we have it on the call sheet, because it depends what scenes they were filming.
I just good old IMDb, Graham Lehman.
There we go.
Crutches, yes.
Yeah, that's good, because that's one that I failed to identify, but I'm glad someone has, because it's always good to find out who these people are.
Oh yeah.
Because lots of the time these people, they just come in and can you do like, that was probably like not even half a day's filming. You probably just like, can you do half an afternoon? So they'd just been in makeup for a little while, and they'd probably done that in 2 takes. That's the thing with this with lots of ITC shows, there weren't many takes done of many of the scenes. They knew that they had to turn them around quickly. I think I've seen a few pictures with clapperboards where it says like take 3, but most of these are sort of literally 1 take and that's it. And they had to work with that. And
Graham's got credits on the Saint and Doctor Who, again opposite John Pertwee. So again, that pops up upstairs, downstairs. Yeah.
I know the name. I just couldn't place him. That's the trouble with a lot of these things now. My memory's getting a bit old. That's unusual as well. It was only like 2 seconds, but it's 2 seconds of total black in that episode there. You know, you don't get that with these things.
No.
She always reminds me, Jutta Stensgaard, of the girl in ABBA when I look at this. I know that's probably very stereotypical.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
You know, nice little production shot there, Brett. You know, I mean, this is the thing that, again, they did all the proper details and stuff with this. So would you wear a jacket like that then? I mean, I'm not talking Juta's. I'm talking Tony's.
Well, either very nice, but well, someone like Tony, of course, can carry it off. But whether I could, I don't know. But,
I don't think I could either, to be honest. No.
I mean, he wore some pretty nice stuff, didn't he? I mean, there's things in.
Yeah. No, I always thought that the fact that when he sort of got his own wardrobe going, you know, but you know, he sort of dressed himself. That his character came much more alive than the sort of say the Lou Grade suits that he wore in, say, Overture and the start of Angie and things like that. You know, I think it much better like when he's kind of like, because he needs to have that contrast to Brett Sinclair, who is always kind of suited and booted. Otherwise, it's too similar. Do you know what I mean? He is supposed to be the rough diamond, the self-made man, you know, from the Bronx and that. So he wouldn't be walking around in kind of, you know, sort of similar suits to, you know, Lord Brett Sinclair, who's from the British aristocracy, you know. Yeah. So I think that actually, once that happened, that it's a lot better. I mean, nothing wrong with kind of how it was in Overture, you know, because obviously that's setting it all up. But he's much better like that.
Oh yeah, it gives them a distinct, you know, differences, and it highlights, you know, the different characters and their background. Tony Bonner's coat is quite striking in this, isn't it? Quite sort of, again, very
I wonder if that was his, you know, because lots of times these actors, they'd go to wardrobe and they'd say, you know, for things like a coat, if you've got your own. I know that lots of the girls and ladies who I've interviewed over the years have always sort of said, oh, you know, dress I was wearing in that episode, that was mine, or that was my jewelry, or you know, that long coat was mine. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to know, actually. You know, another bit of Tony athleticism.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah.
People forget that, you see, when they watch these, they forget that he could kind of do all these things because he'd obviously done trapeze. So he's very able to do, you know, like where he did that sort of jump, flip, forward roll thing in midair. I don't know what you call that. There's probably a somersault technical term for it, you know, in you know, gymnastics. But you know, he was very, very capable of doing any of these things. I think that physicality again added a lot more to the character than some of the other sort of ITC leads that were a bit more kind of I hate to say it, pedestrian, you know, much as I love say like shows like The Champions and Randall and Hopkirk and all that. And if we think about another American, you know, Robert Vaughn wouldn't have done any of this in The Protectors, and Gene Barry, oh my God, he wouldn't have done any of it in The Adventurer. He would have just stood there and, you know, like a lump of wood, and
you
know, I mean, that's what I mean about when we talk about the magic of this show, about the on-screen relationships, be it Tony and Roger being so brilliant and sparky. It's also those other bits that both men bring to it. You know, like I say, Tony's athleticism. So here we are. We're back actually at Osterley Park in London, which is, you can get there if you get the Piccadilly line, I think it's on, and get out there on the tubes out towards Heathrow. We went out there on a location day. I think we went twice. We didn't actually go inside. We didn't need to. We just went and looked at the, you know, the main entrances like this, and the people took pictures, and established that is,
Is it open to the public? Do you know?
Yeah, it's National Trust.
Yeah.
So you can actually go inside, but we didn't go inside because it wasn't used. This is all Pinewood, you see. Yeah, this is a stairwell down at Pinewood.
Yeah, up to the ladies' toilets and then some.
Yeah. Well, because you've been there as well. But so you're familiar with it, So when they do most of these exteriors, they tend to these grand houses. It is all just exteriors and sort of establishing shots. It's not interiors. This is I think it's called the Green Room now at Pinewood, with the pillars and stuff. But it has changed slightly since the filming was, over the years. There was an added bit on the back that's not in the Persuaders. It was built for the Great Gatsby film that they did some alterations on. So, but if you ever get a chance to go to a Pinewood open day, occasionally they do them still, I think. It's so worth going because if you're a fan of any of these kind of things or films of the 60s and 70s, or you get a chance to go and see Heatherden Hall, which is the big house and the grounds and stuff, you'll recognize so many bits and pieces of it, used in not only the Persuaders, but in Man in a Suitcase and Strange Report and UFO and, any sort of film, Bond films that were filmed there, this Goldfinger Alley and all that, it would be great to go if you get the chance. I mean, we got ever so lucky. I mean, I've been many times, but I managed to get a group of us in on a TMA location day with Malcolm Christopher, who was obviously involved with the Persuaders, as our guide. And we went to Stages L&M, and he showed us where the standing set for Brett Sinclair's apartment was and stuff. And we had a fabulous time. And, the beauty of that was that obviously Malcolm was there at the time and doing it, but I managed to get it and wangle it for free. So no one paid anything. It was just a complete freebie, which still find it hard to believe to this day that we managed to do that. But it was great. But back to the show, this is more fun, isn't it? This is Boyzone. How are we going to break out of here? I would be so distracted though by Uta Stent's card. I think I'd want to be staying in there.
She's very
sorry, that's terrible to say, but I think she's rather lovely in this, isn't she? I mean, her and Catherine Shaw, you've got two absolute lovely ladies.
Well, yeah, they photograph well, don't they? Well, everyone in the show does, don't they?
Yeah.
And obviously Doug Robinson, we didn't mention it a bit earlier, but he of course co-wrote the Honor Blackman's self-defense book, didn't he? In the
he did, 60s. Yeah, he did. Yeah, I'd forgotten that actually.
I think they both talked that. I think him and Joe Robinson.
Joe Dunn, was it?
Well, Joe Robinson and Doug. So I think they taught on a judo for the Avengers, and they did various stunts and things on that show. And of course a lot of the Bond films that they did. I don't think they really did anything together but separately, if you like.
But this is so beautifully lit. I mean, if you look how this is lit, I mean, this is just gorgeous. I mean, like that, you can see every sort of eye expression, every sort of little furrow in their brows, and that was so lovely in a way that set that the sort of steam came up and disturbed the picture. Do you know what I mean? The way that Leslie Norman broke that was really good, actually. Pinewood fire buckets, if anyone noticed that on the corner there.
Yeah, it's a very novel way to escape, isn't it? I think it's very well done.
I don't know why you turn it off. I'd have just left it running. I know they've got to run through it, but it's not going to do them any harm, is it?
No, that's true.
Yeah, so Osterley Park, I mean, it's an impressive building, and you can see that they had the Aston Martin there, but this is clearly Pinewood again.
Yeah.
We jump all over really with this, from establishing shots and sort of unit shots, unit shots of Stockholm to Osterley to Pinewood. But it's well done, and
you wouldn't notice the joins. I mean, I suppose the fact you had the wonderful Pinewood Studio house, that it was just tempting not. It was too tempting not to film there. I know things like the New Avengers use the house partly for budget reason, but of course for Persuaders there was no such concerns, because it obviously had a much higher budget. But if you don't need to, why do so?
Did Tony talk about having to do an accent in his interview? Because obviously, if he's Australian and he's having to do a Swedish accent, that's
we do cover, we do cover that,
good.
And it doesn't really sound of that Australian. I think partly obviously because he's been in so many places over the years, but occasionally an Australian twang will come out, but it's a fairly sort of non-Pacific accent. And he did comment that he enjoyed this scene in particular when he was rewatching it. He thought this was quite effective, him and Catherine.
Yeah. Oh, so he remembered her quite well, did he?
Yeah. And he also we watched the episode in preparation for us. But
all right, good.
Indulge of it as to refresh his memory.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the butler there is Walter Horsburgh. Another one of these people that just turn up in everything. There were some script rewrites there on that bit. That they're rewrites because the pages are pink, and if you look at a script, you'll see that the usual pages are white, and their first rewrites are in pink, and then the second rewrites are in blue if they have to do a further rewrite. Which I have some scripts that are like that. Very few scripts get through without any rewriting, to be honest. So yeah, again, I'm not sure if people watching would know that.
Yeah, I suppose there's so many reasons why you need to rewrite, either a change of location or overrunning or
just sometimes it might have overrunning. They might have to shorten things, or they might just look at it and think that that bit of the plot is not quite working. We need to kind of rejig that and tighten it up, or flesh it out a bit, or whatever.
I mean, just to echo what you said earlier, Jaz, about Catherine, I did have the opportunity to. Well, I've met her at a couple of conventions over the years, but also I did a telephone interview with her a couple of years ago, and yes, she had very fond memories of the show, and Nettie Norman, the director, in particular. And she didn't know that Barry Norman was his son until I happened to.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
And I don't think a lot of people make that connection necessarily, that famous film critic Barry Norman was Leslie's son.
Yeah. She went on after this to do a Hammer film called Moon 02. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
It's a very fun sort of a bit daft, really, Hammer film. It's all set in space, and it's not like Dracula or anything like that, but it's worth a viewing if you get the chance, if anyone hasn't seen it. It's got all the sort of regulars. It's directed by Roy Ward Baker, so you've got an ITC director. You've got some great people in it, but it's a bit bonkers and it's a bit fun. So if you kind of want a bit of enjoyable thing and you want to see more of Catherine, and of course she was in Return of the Pink Panther, which that is an ITC film with Peter Sellers, which is so great. And it's that very famous scene where Peter Sellers turns up to from the phone company. I'm going off track a bit because I'm talking about Catherine, so apologies to anyone who doesn't know it. But he turns up and tries to get into the villa and he breaks the doorbell and that. And she famously absolutely couldn't keep a straight face and is just cracking up all the time. And in the end, Blake Edwards just decided to leave it in with her cracking up behind the door because they just couldn't get it without her doing it. So, straight face. So
it's similar a bit in the Return of Pink Panther when Peter Sellers is trained to be one of his, one of his famous disguises. I think it's Guy Gadouar, and you can see her again, sort of not containing it, but again, that's what makes it such a funny scene. That so it works that her character finds him ridiculous as much as So
they had a riot making that as well. I mean, you can just tell, and no one would wanted to touch Peter Sellers at that point. They thought all the film companies like, no, we're not doing another Pink Panther. No one will watch it again. And yet it grossed so much money. It was one of the most popular films of that year, and it just goes to show that sometimes a lot of the time Lou did get it right. Was just his sort of, I want a Pink Panther movie. I love Peter Sellers. So this is interesting. This Range Rover, this is one of the prototype Range Rovers. You briefly saw it then, and you'll see Brett and Danny in it later on. There was a big write-up in a magazine called Car Magazine about that Range Rover and how it was featured in this, and it was kind of the launch of the Range Rover, and it was kind of a bit of product placement,
Right.
So again, I've got that. Maybe I can scan it and we can share it or something, and people can read it. But it's great, I mean, they like you say about budgets, they got all the stuff for this. Their magic went on screen. Danny's Dino.
Yeah, there's good production value, isn't there? We get a lot of location shooting and
So if you wouldn't wear Tony's jacket, would you wear Brett's cravat then?
Well, I was looking at the coat he had outside earlier in the Pinewood Gardens. I'm not sure even Roger got away with that. So I've got no chance. But I don't know. I think we all, I think if we were all in the 70s, I think we'd probably wear it. But I think that's perhaps the fascination with something like the Persuaders, is that it doesn't really date too much, but of course you see it in the clothing, and we would like to see it from these other eras. And
this is so this is the Range Rover. So this is the prototype I was saying. Obviously they had a stunt driver and not co-driver, but person in there for Danny and Brett. I think that it's a dummy for Danny Wilde, actually, and it's a guy just driving, a stunt driver, because I'm pretty sure that most of that is a dummy in there.
Doesn't look quite right, does it? On certain...
No, and of course you see it better with Blu-ray. On a dodgy old VHS that we had all those years ago, maybe the windscreen was whistling there. I don't know if you noticed that when they went through that tree, and then when they go through here now.
I think there is some continuities of the windscreen being muddy, not muddy.
And then missing. So it's fun though, Yeah, it's fun.
I mean, was this scene quite elaborate because they wanted to show off the Range Rover?
I am going to just quickly check in the script if it says a Range Rover. It does say a Range Rover, Country Road Range Rover taking the same direction as a saloon car. So they obviously got that in there well. Must have been fun driving it around like that. The windscreen's missing there, so and there. So that, I mean, again, you wouldn't notice it in 1971 probably on a small black and white TV, or if you were lucky enough to have a color TV.
Yeah.
But obviously with Blu-ray and things like that, these things become so much more apparent, and that's half the fun, really, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it does show tremendous foresight, doesn't it? Sort of, well, we film these, 35 mil as opposed to things like Doctor Who and Early Avengers on videotape, because videotape for a small TV would of course been fine, but there was certainly a sense of, well, I suppose it was for the American market, wasn't it? Because they demanded a higher quality of.
Yeah, and it's a global format. See, so if you've got videotape, just for the way that things are, like the French system, for example, with CCAM and stuff like that, you find it very difficult to get in. But because everywhere in the world has 35 mil film, it's a global format. So here in the script, this is quite interesting. It's quite a very different ending, really, because I'll explain it in a second. Obviously, Catherine Schell, his wife, she's clearly now actually kind of fallen for him. Throughout this episode, you've seen now she's getting more and more sort of upset with what her brother John is doing, and how actually, she's realizing that Brett Sinclair is a man of honor, and actually, she could do a lot worse than marry him. So when this goes off, well, those gunshots there, originally in the script, Tony Bonner's character was going to shoot Brett, and Catherine Schell jumps in the way and takes the bullet and dies in his arms, which is quite a different ending for. And that's kind of how it would have ended. There is a little sort of very short piece afterwards, which I'm just going to read now, and it's kind of like 3 or 4 lines, nothing like this. So, they must have thought that was quite a brutal way to end this episode, with her dying in his arms on screen. So, and that's not it. That's not a rewrite that I've got. So that's clearly a later rewrite. So they've obviously got to this stage and thought, that's a bit harsh, really. So we need to rethink that. So this stuff is not in the script and is added in later. So that's the thing, a beauty of having a TV script, because then you can compare and contrast how things were. And like, I think, let's say, probably for the Persuaders, they'd already done that. Someone dying in if you think of Angie, Larry Storch dies in Tony Curtis's arms as his best friend from childhood. So maybe they thought, oh, we've done that and we can't really do it again. Or maybe they thought it was a bit hard that, it's a woman dying in his arms. And that's why I like the script. I'm a bit of a script person. I like the changes. I like to see how things develop and move on and progress, or so wonderful end titles. I mean, still think this is the best TV music ever.
Oh yeah.
I know people probably think I'm biased, but probably I'm a bit.
Was John Barry ever approached to do an episode score, or was it maybe?
No, it was just that. Just do the theme. That's the gig. Yeah.
I suppose, as you were saying, with the ending, the original ending being quite dark, there was the echo, wasn't there, with Roger's reaction to Christine initially when he thinks she's conning him. So there is a darker tone in the episode, and of course with Tony Bonner's character murdering the butler.
Yeah.
So there's this darkness in there that kind of ending wouldn't have been out of place. But as you say, there were many reasons why they decided against it.
Yeah.
So do you have any other comments you'd like to make, Jaz, at this stage about the episode, or
I'd really like to hear what Tony said, actually.
Okay, let's hope technology doesn't fail us. So
it failed me at the start of this when my DVD Blu-ray decided to stop or pause or whatever it was, and then suddenly like kicked back in and it wasn't in the right place. So
yeah,
the gremlins are out tonight.
Oh yeah. I'll just see if I can share my screen. We'll play the interview, and then we'll have a little wrap-up chat. So
yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see me and Tony behind now. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to full screen that. Do tell me, Jazz, if it's too loud. Just turn it down slightly. Okay, so here we go.
The first work I was offered was a film with Mick Jagger. Mick was going to come back to Australia to do Ned Kelly, a film on a famous bush ranger here in Australia. Mick was coming back to do that, and another production was being set up at the same time. And they had asked the other production that had Albert Finney coming out to play. They asked me to play Dan Kelly, one of the brothers. Fortunately or unfortunately, that second production was cancelled. The Mick Jagger film went ahead. But in doing that in London at the time, Peter Collinson, who was on the film, was then off that film and given a film by Columbia Pictures called, originally it was called The Dubious Patriots, to shoot in Turkey with Charles Bronson and Tony Curtis. It was later retitled You Can't Win Them All, which was a big film at that stage. There was a character that I was asked to play, Reese, one of Tony Curtis's gang of bad people. So I went off to Turkey and worked there for the next 3 months on that film with Peter Collinson directing. And Peter had said a couple of nice things about my work to a director friend of his back in London at Pinewood, who was starting to put together the Persuaders. So when I finished in Turkey, I came back to London, and I was asked about a character that you saw in the Persuaders, and I went and did that down on Studios L and M at Pinewood, and that's how that came about, Phil.
Perfect. So you already had a bit of a relationship with Tony Curtis that probably helped being on set. How did you find working with Tony?
Oh, fabulous! I mean, he is brilliant, admirable, fine, funny fellow. There's a lot of laughing with Tony. He's just one of those characters. So it was a joy working with him in Turkey with Charlie Bronson. Charlie and I got along very well. And then when I came back to London, it was great working with Tony on the Persuaders and meeting and becoming a lifelong friend of the wonderful Roger Moore. So, I mean, it was a great joy for me to play that character, to rework again with Tony Curtis and to meet Roger, and we remained very close friends for the rest of our lives.
Wonderful. Did you find that the relationship between Tony and Roger, they got on set? Was it similar to their characters in the show, or were they quite different people?
They were kind of the same. I mean,
sorry, I just paused it. Sorry, hang on.
Roger was kind of Roger in most things he did. Roger was a leading man, and you hired Roger because he was an Englishman that had a little twinkle in his eye and had a manner about him that's what you required for the character. So I forget the character's name in the Persuaders, Lord, whoever it was.
Lord Wexley there, yes.
Yeah, correct. Roger was perfect for it. And the second character that Tony Curtis played was this guy from the Bronx who was kind of funny and flippant, and that's Tony kind of in real life. And so he just replayed that in the Persuaders as Daniel. And I thought the chemistry between the two of them was pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So when you read the character, did the character change much from the page to screen? How much influence would you have to bring your own thoughts to the role?
Well, yeah, good question. What I've always done as an actor, Philip, and I continue to do it, I look at what I can find within the character I've been asked to play that I can have a moment. I can find something that makes that man I'm playing, I hope, me, or conversely, me, him. I've done it in all the films I've ever done. I find I try not to act the man I'm playing. I try to be the man I'm playing in everything I do. And so I found this character, this assassin. I didn't want to play him as an assassin. I tried to play him in such a manner that this was his job. This was his profession. He wasn't, this is what he did. And I tried to have that element with the character. And in the brief moments you have when you shoot television, I hope it worked, that the character seemed to work. Everyone seemed to be happy with it. It seemed to be a believable character. So that's all I can do as an actor.
Well, yeah, and I think the character comes up very well indeed. I think he did a really good job. I had a question from come in about your co-stars. Because Catherine Shell plays your sister. What was she like to work with?
Well, she was fabulous, and it was all too brief. We got along extremely well. I liked the manner in which she attached to her character. I thought the two characters kind of complemented each other. I think there was a believability between the two characters. I don't think the audience sat back and thought, oh, that's an actor playing that role and that's an actor playing that role. I think the audience genuinely believed that these people knew each other and knew personally what they're about. So I thought the working relationship was great. And the personal one was as well. I think she's a wonderful woman, and yeah, it was a joy to be able to do that.
Wonderful. Another person that you had quite a few scenes was Bernard Hoffel. I don't know if you remember Bernard at all.
Oh no, I remember Bernard, and I knew him in the characters that he played in many television and film roles in England. And I would presume, and in the brief chat we had, in the theatre work that he had done. Though I had great admiration for him. That's the joy you have in England, and have always had, that when you do your series there, you have such a wealth of fine actors, usually all theatrically trained, usually all come up through that strong touring companies of theatre, that then discover film and television, warm to that genre. So there's always solid work from everyone in England.
What was it like? What was your memories of work at Crown Studios? Was it a good studio to work in?
Well, yeah. I mean, my main memory was down at Pinewood there. Philip, yeah, the other films have been basically on location in Africa. The film I did down there for Hammer Productions, Malta, obviously, Turkey, obviously. I think the Persuaders was the longest studio shoot in England that I had. Everything else was on location. So the Persuaders was great to be in that studio. I mean, just to drive through those Pinewood gates every morning was a real buzz for me. It was wonderful.
The episode was directed by Leslie Norman. Do you recall the director at all?
I do. It would seem that Leslie was a friend of Peter Collinson's, who directed the film I did in Turkey, and apparently Peter had said some kind of nice things to Leslie about my work in his film in Turkey, and that was, I think, or I was led to believe, one of the main reasons I was offered the role in that Persuaders episode with Leslie directing. Yeah.
I just wonder about Leslie's directing style, whether he was somebody who very much let the actors get on with it, or whether he was more sort of,
Yeah, no, I think from memory, he allowed the actors, as long as the actors hit their marks, as long as where the blocking had been done, most actors that do television and film at that level, we know where the camera is, we know where our key lighting is, we know where not to move because the camera will be shooting off the set. So within the frame that we all understand, Leslie, like most directors, if we've had the discussion about what is required in this scene, the director will say, what I need to have happen in this scene is this moment of intrigue, or this moment. I mean, the film industry and television to a degree is about moments. You find moments, and it may be just pausing a little on your dialogue to hold that moment that makes an audience think, what the hell's he going to say? What the hell's he going to do? And that's what you want. You want an audience to go on a journey with you. I think Leslie, along with all good directors, they hire actors that they know are going to deliver the dialogue. They know they're going to deliver a performance that will be, hopefully, of interest.
Would you have watched the episode when it was broadcast? You'd like to watch your work?
No, I didn't. I really do. Philip, for no reason, really, other than once I've done it, once I've watched the rushes or the dailies, then it's really, I don't have a say in it. There's only quite a few actors in the world that have editorial say. So I deliver what I hope is the correct performance that the director and the producers want, with my, I hope, added interest in this man I'm playing, whatever I'm doing, that I hope they discover something from my performance that they find interesting, and maybe edit a little more around the character I'm playing than was maybe conceived originally.
Have you seen the episode since then?
I did, Philip, and I thank you for sending me that little link. It was a little trip down memory lane. I loved it. I wish I had taken the suit I was wearing. I like that suit. But it was wonderful to see some of the scenes again. It was a joy, and I thank you for that. Yeah, I like the construction of a couple of the scenes. There was one when the two of us walked out of a room and we heard the phone go downstairs, and the butler or someone answered the phone, and I picked up the spare phone and listened to it. I thought that little moment then between us worked quite well. So, but yeah, no, there was some enjoyed it, Philip. I enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Are you surprised that people are so interested in the show 50 years on? And did you find that the attention to your work surprises you still?
No, I don't think I'm surprised. I'm delighted that there are people throughout the world that like watching television and film from another period when things were not so tricked up, when actors did. I mean, I did most of my stunts back in those days.
How much does the character's voice come in? Because something like Persuaders, you have an accent to work with, and is that part of finding the character, or is there any accents you think, oh my god, I've got to do this accent, I'm going to struggle with this one?
Sure. Well, on that one, you know, a couple of people, a couple of the characters had to have similar sort of accents. You know, so it was. I just wanted to hear what they were doing when we rehearsed. I just wanted to hear how European as such. It was kind of. You didn't know if he came from Denmark, Norway, Sweden. You didn't know where he came from. And that was fine with me. That was fine. He didn't need to be kind of that specific. So as long as I made the character, I hope, interesting, that was what I needed to, what I wanted to do as the actor, was to make the character interesting. Yeah.
Do you have any comments you'd like to make direct to the fans watching this, the Persuaders?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I hope, I'm sorry that some of them weren't there to do a direct Q&A with them. I hope, however you show this, Philip, or edit this up, I thank them for being fans of the show overall. And I hope somewhat of some of the work I've
done. Okay, so I hope people enjoyed that.
You know, it's good to hear, good to see. You know, it's all right, you know, me nattering on about it, but you really want the people who were there at the time involved with it. So, yeah, I mean, well done for tracking him down, and great for getting him to talk about it.
I'm just trying to get us full screen again. How do you turn off sharing?
No idea. You're talking to somebody who doesn't really. I do Zoom, but I don't really control the things going on. I just leave it, you know.
Stop share. That's probably what it was. Yes.
There we go. Yeah. No, I think you did really well there to find him, and obviously he seemed very, you know, interested to chat about it, and he said some interesting things, and yeah, well done you.
Yeah, I thought Tony was lovely to speak to, and we did talk for over an hour, and I just wanted to cut it down to a reasonable length for tonight's purposes, but hopefully the extended version, which does have a little bit more, it's a tiny bit more about Persuaders, but also, of course, his career in general and how he started out, etc. It's all quite sort of fascinating stuff. So,
well, I didn't, you know, I mean, he mentioned that working with Tony Curtis before, you know, I mean, that's all good stuff as well. And, you know, and like he said about his friend who was the director, who was a friend of Leslie Norman's, and, you know, all those little sort of things that you don't kind of pick up unless you actually talk to someone involved with it. So that's good to know, you know.
I mean, did you know much about Peter Collinson? Do you have much to do with?
Not really, no. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Never really pursued or, you know, gone down that route of trying to do anything with him, or when he was not sure even still if he's sure if he's still with us.
I think he died fairly young, actually. I think he wasn't a grand old age, unfortunately.
Yeah. So no. But I mean, it just goes to show in their business. Well, lots of business. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And a director putting in a good word for you means you get a role in something else. Which is always nice to get a job on a recommendation, isn't it? No matter what your field is.
Yeah, I think it highlights the luck element of it, isn't it? Especially being an actor, you get a role because somebody knows you, or one production is cancelled, or that sort of thing. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a testimony to how well the show was made, that people like Tony 50 years on still remember it. Remember it at all is quite a miracle. Something that happens to you so long ago, but with such fondness as well, I think is really great.
Yeah, I think if I was sharing a few scenes with Catherine Shaw at that time, I'd remember it as well.
Yeah, I think you were, to be honest, and yeah, with Roger and Tony Curtis. I mean, these are not insignificant people, are they? So
no, and interesting that he mentioned that scene, like you say, where they picked up the phone and he thought they had a sort of spark together. That's quite nice. Yeah,
and I like the fact he didn't, about his accent. He wasn't. I think he wanted to keep it the mystery of this guy is somebody who moves around, and as an assassin, you haven't got a fixed place, and it's you can't really nail it down. I thought that was quite a good decision on his part.
Yeah. He did well with his accent, because you could hear he was Australian there where he was doing the interview with you.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not overly thick accent, is it? So it's sort of compared to some Australian ones, but you wouldn't know it from the episode at all, would you?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
And I think, like a lot of people, we started in lots of theatre work, and again, one of those people that is very qualified, overqualified, I suppose, for because I think TV back then was still seen as a bit of you would do TV if you couldn't do film, wasn't it? So
yeah, there's that snobbery involved with looking down upon it. Yeah, very much so.
But I think having Tony Curtis in this almost perhaps started that change of it, sort of, here you have a big movie star in a TV show.
Yeah, I think we spoke about that before, about the sort of ripples it sent around the industry at the time, that he was coming over to do this. Yeah.
I mean, you named your magazine the morning after.
Yeah, I did.
This episode, was it just because it was a catchy title, or does this episode particularly fond?
No, well, I mean, like, I always liked this episode. I mean, it's funny when people say to me, choose a standout episode, we always kind of end up going with, something like, say, Overture, because it's in south of France, and Greensleeves because it's, just so great. But I've always liked this episode, and I'm trying to think why I liked it so much. I just thought it just worked really well as an episode, and it was one of those ones that when I started doing, the idea of doing a Persuaders magazine, I wanted to call it an episode title, but I didn't want to call it Overture or The Old, the New, or The Deadly, or something. Something that had to be something, right? And I did think for a while about Nuisance Value, which I ended up doing a little sort of spin-off magazine called Nuisance Value. But I thought it might sound a bit like You Are Being a Nuisance, where if you were to say to someone, will you do an interview for my magazine called Nuisance Value? And of course, with the morning after, I sort of shortened it to TMA, and everyone kind of called it TMA as well. So it just kind of just worked. And it's just one of those great episodes, really, I think, that often gets overlooked.
Oh yeah, and it's the title, of course. Also, I think there was an Avengers episode that was called The Morning After as well. So it's a good title, isn't it? For and it has some great actors. It's a really good script, and I don't think we mentioned that Bernard and Catherine were both in a Man's Secret Service, so there is that. They both had as well.
Of course, there's that On Her Majesty's link. That there's lots of On Her Majesty's links to Persuaders episodes, obviously with Peter Hunt, and then Chain of Events, and they show the book and that, and throughout, and there's George Baker. There's it's kind of, well, it's the best Bond film for me anyway. So
I think, and certainly the best book, isn't it? Which of course helped. But I think this one would probably have to be in the top 10. I think of the episodes. I think certainly.
Yeah, I think it often gets overlooked because, I don't know why. I don't know why. Because I thought, it's got some good location stuff, and it's got the Stockholm stuff, which is I say second unit, but it just goes to show that they did make the effort to do it right. They didn't just buy in some stock footage of Stockholm. They actually did go and match the shots as well, because I talked to you about the car where they were in the car, and the back projection plate was actually properly in Stockholm and things like that. It's all those little details that add up when you're trying to make a show like this that make it better than some of the others that we all like and love.
When we're talking about location footage, I think you recently been posting on your Facebook page some episode trims from. And I take it these are things that are not on the Blu-ray release there.
No, sadly they're not. And what happened, from what I understand, is that World Backgrounds sold a load of trims, and they've ended up in Kino Library's archive, and they've been digitizing them and uploading them. And of course, when the DVDs and Blu-rays were done, I don't think they knew that they were there. But what's fascinating with them is you're getting lots of stuff that was kind of unused. So they would film a car sequence kind of shot, and then it didn't end up being used in the episode. So you're getting some nice sort of extra little bits. We'd love them all to be on a DVD or a Blu-ray or something. Maybe that'll happen one day. But yeah, I mean, it's just nice to see. I like all that sort of extra little bits and pieces that are there.
Was there anything for the morning after that is amongst it? Was it?
No, it's mostly stuff in the south of France with the cars and stuff. There are some other bits and pieces because most of this is sort of second unit stuff again, so not main unit. Although the car chase sequence with the Aston Ferrari is obviously the main unit, but lots of it is kind of like second unit stuff. And mostly second unit stuff is either doubles walking along streets or cars being driven by. So yeah, it's still nice. I mean, there are bits from other shows as well, like Man in a Suitcase and Round and Hopkirk and all that kind of thing. So it's just nice. I mean, eventually they'll digitize it all, and we'll probably have enough footage someone somewhere might have enough footage to fill up a DVD for us nutters who want to watch it all.
I think on some of the Doctor Who Blu-rays of the classic series, there's 3 hours of location B-roll footage, and you just think, how can anybody absorb that? But of course, there are dedicated people like ourselves that just sort of laugh it up. But obviously, the Persuaders have been very successful for networks, so it's likely that they will continue to revisit, as they're about to do again with the feature films, Persuaders. How did that idea come about? How did they approach you? Because obviously you've been heavily involved in that.
Yeah, well, it's obviously all to tie in with the 50th anniversary, and I've known them and done bits and pieces with them for a long, long time. I was involved with their Blu-ray release. I let them have access to all my scripts and stuff, and they very kindly invited me along to the launch event where Roger and Barry Norman were there, and they got in touch with me last year, someone, and said that we're going to do Persuaders 50th, would you like to be involved? And then I had a meeting with them, and one of the things that I'd done when I did an exhibition of Persuaders memorabilia in 1997, and Tim, who's the MD, knows I've got a huge archive of stuff, and he said, "What about all this stuff?" And we just got chatting, and I did a book for that but it never kind of got published. So I did it. I did one copy of it. I was trying to punt it around to get it published, but no one would publish it at the time. And I showed him it, and he said, "Oh, we could do something with that." And then I sort of said, he said, "Have a think about it." So I came up with this thing of doing originally I was going to do, the book I wanted to do originally for a long time was called The Time and a Place, and it was just the production book about the Persuaders. But of course, Andrew Pixley wrote this amazing book that came with the Blu-ray sets. There's no way I can beat that. Not that I want to beat it or add, or Andrew's so precise and so thorough. So I had to look at it in a slightly different way. I still wanted to keep the title. But I'm a very visual person, and when I mean that, I mean, I like reading books, but I'm very more interested in the pictures. And it's not just because I'm lazy, it's because I'm a graphic designer. So visual things appeal to me.
Yeah.
So I sort of said, well, we could revamp this and we could do this. And then I showed Tim some bits and pieces, and he's like, oh my God, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, we doing 100. It's 144 page. It's 140 pages, and obviously the cover, but the covers are being used as well. So it's a 144 page book, and I sort of limited it to that. I could have made it a lot bigger, but I was thinking it could be overloaded. So I wanted it to be a really nice flavor, and there are some things that I could have put in, for example, like the unused storylines. But then I'm thinking well, they're not really merchandise and they're not memorabilia as such. They're so, there are bits and pieces in there that are a bit like that. But I was trying to think that, so, maybe if, there could be an expanded version where to look at, they're very boring because they're just typed on a bit of paper, but to read, they're fascinating. Yeah. So I think they kind of need to be explored a bit in that, and then there's things like I've got the, for example, the printer's proof copy of the Persuaders annual. The very first thing they print, it's like a pagination thing, but it's all in black and white. And then I've actually got at the time they used to print annual books and stuff using color separation films. I've got all the originals for those as well, but they don't kind of look super duper, if you know what I mean. They're nice to have and show to people and on a video thing to say. But so yeah, there's lots. There's not lots. There's quite a bit of stuff I left out. I mean, for example, there's no video covers in there and no DVD covers because when I got to it, and this is me doing the self-editing. This has nothing to do with network, by the way. They didn't say you can't put any video covers in there at all. I mean, Tim was just like, you decide, you're going to do all the editorial for it. And I just felt like, besides maybe the precision videos of, say, London Conspiracy and Sporting Chance, and then the Channel 5 ones, once you get into the multiple re-releases of like when Polygram released them, and then Polygram released them in Germany, and they released them in Denmark, and they released them in Sweden, the artwork was almost identical. The only thing that changed was the title, where it's called a different thing in a different in country. And then the multiple DVD releases. I mean, it's been released in France at least about 3 or 4 times, in Germany 3 or 4 times, Spain, Italy, America, all the Scandinavian countries. It's kind of like, it's very, very modern stuff, all that. And I was kind of thinking, well, I kind of want to keep it a little bit more 70s based. There are some more modern things, but it's like I've got some Bravo stuff that they did, but some of that I've left out deliberately because I was thinking like it wasn't the greatest design and it's kind of a bit modern, and I like the sort of 70s stuff the best. And of course there's lots of stuff from overseas as well. So like let's say the Persuaders paperback books or novelizations, that because they were hardbacks as well, that you end up with like them being reprinted in Italy, in France, in Germany. There's a Portuguese of number one, and then in Finland there's 2, and in Turkey there's 2, and in Israel there's 4, you know, in America there's 2. So I mean, all of those are included in the book. And it's funny you mentioned about Tony there. There's actually Tony Bonner's compliment card. It's a Tribune card. It was sent from the production office. It says to Tony, "This is the script as discussed for the role of John." That's actually in the book. I was going to show that tonight, but actually I thought I don't want to, because I want to keep that as a surprise. Well, not a surprise, but something that's actually visual in the book. So that's in there. This, you know, and it's been a pleasure to be able to do. And the thing is, they love these shows as much as we do, and they wanted to do a celebration at the start and the end of it. So that's why they did 2 nights. And of course, they were looking for kind of new things as well on film. And then they had the Roger Moore interview from the launch of the Blu-ray, which was 10 years ago. And they had the Tony Curtis interview that they did for the Blu-ray set, that only bits and pieces of it were in the documentary. So they had all of that, and they wanted to do show all of that. And then of course the movies, and of course the compilation movies. Well, only 4 were released in the UK, but there were another 4 that were released in Italy and 1 in Turkey. So it's kind of like we're getting them all now. And like, I know some people think, oh, well, you know, I've already got the episodes, but actually for a lot of us, those things like London Conspiracy and Mission Monte Carlo and Sporting Chance, they were the only things we had for years to watch on the Persuaders, because the series wasn't on TV and it was very hard to get copies of. I mean, I did manage to get some copies of, but they were like from all over the world. I had copies of prints from Australia that were cut, and then I had some that were from Scandinavia with subtitles on and all of this sort of thing. So those kind of things were the only things that we had that were, you know, that you could kind of watch that were half decent in terms of, you know, and okay, though I know that they were 2 episodes cut together and they didn't have the proper opening and end titles on most of them. But, you know, if that's all you've got, that's all you've got. And that's all we had for ages. So something like London Conspiracy, I quite fond of, really. You know, I mean, I wore that Channel 5. I mean, I had the Precision one and I had the Channel 5 one, and then I don't know why, but I kind of played the Channel 5 one more, and I ended up wearing it out completely, kind of thing, you know. I've got, obviously had another copy in the times, but I mean, you know, now, and then it was on the DVD set, and then it was on the Blu-ray set. So now, okay, I know they've released it before, but they've never released it like completely digitally restored in widescreen with extended little bits that they found and smartened up the credits and stuff. And yeah, no, I think they look great. I mean, I haven't actually seen a whole complete one except for the one that was on the night that they showed the Masqueraders, and very kindly they sent me some viewing bits and pieces. As they were working on them, they would say, oh, you know, here's like, you know, a few bits of this with, you know, how do you think this looks? Or, you know, does this look great? You know, because they've done some things to the titles and stuff. And I think they've done a brilliant job. And I'm not just saying that because I've been involved, because they've done it with love and care. And that's the difference. You know, anyone can do them slapdash and just get them out, but to actually do them properly takes a lot of effort. And I can't really speak highly enough of what they've done, because they've done a brilliant job. Yeah,
I mean, having seen the Masqueraders as part of that night, it was wonderful. And if you just wanted to do a cash in, you could have just released them as they were. They didn't have to do all the restoration thing. So that shows the love they have for them. The extra bits they've put in, is that again new stuff, or is that stuff that's been on the DVDs?
No, it's like, so when the episodes do a fade to black, obviously as it's fading to black, there's still action going on, and there might be another sort of 5 or 6 seconds at the end of that. So what they've done is they've kind of kept those bits in, which is, you know, really nice, because, you know, you might usually a scene might fade to black as a door opens and someone walks through it, and then it's but you don't actually see them walk into the room as such. So you get all those extra tiny little bits, and then people might think, oh wow, but they were filmed, and so like I kind of quite like all those bits and pieces personally.
Yeah, I think as a fan, we always love to see differences and alternates, because again, an average audience member wouldn't notice it, but we of course know every inch of it, so we delight in those little differences. I suppose it's a bit like the Man from U.N.C.L.E. feature films that they put together, 2 episodes. As you were saying, it was kind of the only format of the show that they knew, and then of course later on they got the series. So I suppose it's always been a good history of putting TV episodes together and releasing them separately. I did have one question from Remco. He just wanted to know what do you think the most special items you will see in the book?
Pardon? What were there?
He wants to know what is the most special item that we'll see in your book. What are you most looking forward for us to see?
Oh, blimey. That's a tough one, because I think there's some really nice things in there. Obviously, there's Roger's script from Chain of Events that I think I showed last time. That's kind of a predominant thing, because to think that he used it, and that was that. I mean, I think there's some lovely things in there from all around the world. I think that's kind of, it's more the thing that I think that I'm so familiar with it. That's the trouble, because I've immersed myself in this world for so long that I'm not sure what people have seen and haven't seen, to be honest. I do think they might not have seen the Israeli paperbacks, because I know I found it virtually impossible to track them down. And I've only got 3, and Remco's got the one I'm missing. So between us, I'm really grateful he's got it, because, I've known Remco years, and we kind of got this great relationship where we just share stuff. So, he might have something and he'll let me have a copy of a scan of it, and I send him 2 or 3 things back or whatever, and that friendship's been going on for years. So I'm kind of so close to it. I don't know what other people have and haven't seen, and it's difficult when I because I obviously talked to Remco about it. Can I use this that's yours, and can I use that's yours? And he was like, yeah, it's fine, it's great. But again, he's so close to the stuff that I'm not sure what he would consider to be like, but someone like yourself, say, Philip, who might not have seen half these things, you might think, oh wow, there's this, that, and the other, and so I'm kind of hoping that other people who maybe aren't so familiar with all the stuff might turn around and say, wow, I didn't know XYZ, or that's a great thing, or I've put an example of a production drawing in there, which I think is nice. There's the original artwork from a TV21 cover. I think that's quite nice. It's just so difficult for me to say what I think is. Well, we'll find out on Monday. When it comes out on Monday, hopefully some people will say, hey, Jaz, that's great. I didn't know that this, or, there were so many Italian posters, or whatever, So, Philip, you're going to have to tell me.
Yeah, I think I say everyone will find something special to them that's something they haven't seen, or a particular area, like, say, I love poster artwork, so I think that might be quite a highlight for myself, and we all look forward to the release on Monday. Is there any closing comments you'd like to make, Jaz, before we end things?
Just keep going at what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job. See if you can get some more people like you who you had tonight with Tony, and just keep on keeping on, and whether it be Persuaders, or I know that you've talked about doing some other stuff, and I know you've been doing some New Avengers and stuff. Just enthusiasm is what we need, and we need people like yourself to continue doing what you're doing, as well as what other people are doing, because without people trying to do these things, then these shows kind of just die. Well, not die, but they go flat. And I think everyone needs that little bit of there's like someone we found the film trends, or you've done an interview with Vivian Ventura or Peter Medak or something like that, so just keep going. Philip, and keep everyone informed of what you're doing, and share it, and we'll all watch and enjoy it.
Okay.
So thanks for having me.
No, thanks, Jaz, for joining me. I couldn't do it without your expertise. So yeah, I had a really good evening looking at this episode, and it was great fun. Thank you very much, Jaz.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that video with Tony, and well done. And it's really nice to see. So keep up the good work.
I will. And you too, Jaz. We love your books and your contribution.
Cheers.
Yeah, keep it up.
Yeah. Well, everyone can say what they want on Monday. Let's see. Let's get the comments flying in.
Oh yeah. I think it'll be incredibly well received. So I think we'll
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
All right. Well, you look after yourself, and I'll say good night. And thanks to everyone for watching.
Yeah. Thanks everyone, and I'm sure we'll chat again in the future, Jaz.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.